Hey traders, Michael or 𝐿𝐼𝐴 here. You're here for another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis. Today is Turnaround Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. You're looking at a daily chart of the SPY or Spiders, which is the proxy for the S&P 500. What do we have on the docket today? Well, we're down a whopping 1 penny, 0% on the day, pretty much a rounding error, and we like to call that a nothing burger day. We have a little doji candle, little pseudo doji, whatever you want to call it. That's not going to really hold any importance because first of all, the volume was very weak today, did not have the accompanying volume, and it's not really in line with the bigger picture of what's going on. What is the big picture? What's going on and what is she doing? Well, we could start with above all the moving averages, she's bullish. Therefore, trend is your friend until your shit gets thrown out the window. Item number 2, she's approaching the previous all-time high. The all-time high is right from this breakdown candle. That number comes in at 673.95, and she's just edging up, trying to make a test or an attempt of that previous all-time high. Today's high is at 672.99. Just taking it at face value, she's hanging around the vicinity of the previous all-time high, finding resistance at this big-time breakdown candle high, in or around the high. We did have some overhead resistance numbers up and around that area for inside the numbers and live room members. We'll check that out later. But again, just taking it at face value, we had a 0% day today. We're down 1 penny, pretty much a rounding error, and she's eating time off the clock up and around that area, potentially building up energy to complete that business. We were about a buck away from reaching 673.95. Couldn't do it, wasn't strong enough, came right back down to the flat line, recocking the gun. Now, would we be surprised to see a pullback before the all-time high? No, we would not. Would we be surprised to see the all-time highs before a pullback? No, we would not. We don't know which one is going to happen. Nothing in the market is 100% certain. We know that. Also, it's the market's job to trick, trap, fool, and frustrate as many traders as possible the most amount of times as possible. And that's why we need to take it one day at a time. But at this stage of the game, we're going to make the assumption that Mrs. Market is going to reach the previous all-time high and poke her head above. How much is she going to poke her head above? Well, I do have some ideas and numbers worked out. Above the all-time high in uncharted territory, one number / target towards the upside that we just missed before we went and made our way back down is at 675. That's a big fat semi-round number. And then I do have some other mathematical numbers that we'll get to if and when we poke our heads above the all-time high, so we'll certainly be ready for that. I've done the work. Wish there was more something substantial to talk about for the Spiders. Main conclusion here is as long as we're above all the moving averages, she's bullish and staying above this longer term pivot number. I'm not going to get it perfect, 2 cents off, but it's at 660. As long as we're staying above that as well, then I don't see a reason why she can't poke her head above a little. Then I don't see a reason why she can't just poke her head above a little. We'll take it one day at a time. Now here's the main talk of the day. We got some of the precious metal commodities taking a little dip. We got silver down 6.33%. Funny how that works. Oh, it just changed, but whatever. So you got silver down, and then going over to gold futures, you got gold down 5.29%, and they're taking a little beating today. So as we know, silver and gold has been the main topic of discussion recently just because of how much of a rocket ride they're on right now, just constantly making new all-time highs, performing extremely well. Let's go take a look at the charts, do some technical analysis, and see what's going on. So if you type in what's going on with silver and gold today, you're going to receive a bunch of different articles saying, oh, this is the reason why it went down. Silver dropped 6% because of this, that, and the other. But just looking at the chart, and what do we say pretty much every single day when we're in these types of situations? We've been extended from home base. The last time we touched home base was right around right here, August 22nd, which is almost 2 months ago. And the saying goes, markets don't like to be too extended from home base. Okay, we call it home base for a reason. The market, one way or the other, is always going to want to make a run back towards home base. That's where she feels comfortable the most. And it could happen one of 2 ways. One being price just comes straight back down and reaches home base. The other way is that we eat time off the clock waiting for the 20-period moving average to creep back up. Perfect example right here. This was in the beginning of June. Nice few up days for silver. And then pretty much, and we could even extend this a little bit, pretty much after this move, We were just eating time off the clock, waiting for the 20-period moving average to creep back up to price. So just taking it at face value, we were extended and we wanted to pay a visit to home base. Nothing more, nothing less, at least right now. Okay, we were on a pretty crazy rampage. It doesn't mean it has to be over right now. For one thing, we gotta see how they treat that 20-period moving average, seeing whether we close candles above or below to reestablish price above all the trend lines. By the way, take a look at where price stopped today. Right around this big time breakup candle low. It was a spike of the 20-period moving average. She spiked it by just a tad, but that was support. Okay, and the other thing that we have to take note of is that we do see some reversal qualities. All right, you got a reversal candle-ish right here with decent volume. So that does have qualities of a sign and or signal of a trend change. We take note of these. This is one of the many sign and or signals of a trend change. You also got exhaustion candles, doji candles, tail candles, reversal candles like this one. These are all taught in the MSF Masterclass course. So we definitely should keep an eye on that. As you can see right here, this was a tail candle with the accompanying volume down below, greater than all the others. But after this tail candle, we just kept on going up. So for one thing, we got to see how we're going to treat the 20-period moving average. Closing candles above or below. Right now, we're closing candles below. Doesn't mean same thing's going to happen tomorrow, but we can certainly be on the lookout. And then just clearing up the noise real quick, taking a look at a weekly time frame, we are still very, very extended from home base. We do have another tail candle situation here on a bigger time frame with heavy volume. So that's another thing that we got to take note of. What about gold? Pretty much the same deal. Heading back towards home base. Could potentially find some support right at this breakup candle low that happens to coincide right with home base. It's also near or around a big fat round number at 4,000. Weekly chart, pretty much same deal. Heavily extended from home base. This could be the start to a trend change, but again, we just got to take it one day at a time. Right now, gold and silver are on their way to test home base because they were extended, or at least gold is right now. Silver already did the deal. So despite having a nothing burger day, did we have any trades for Inside the Numbers and live room members? Well, the answer is yeah, we did. So let's go over the Zero Dark 30 notes. This is the morning game plan that's laid out to members well before the opening bell. As you can see right here, we had our morning pivot at 671.60. Then the first overhead resistance number, this was a give or take number between 672.25 and 672.55. And then one other number to take note of is the first support number on the board at 670.80. All right, so right at the vertical line is today's activity. Got the overhead resistance numbers up above in red. Got the morning pivot in green. And we also have the first support number in blue. So we're on a 1 minute time frame, just for now at least. And we'll zoom in to the very beginning of the morning. Opened pretty much right on the pivot. This was a trader's choice. More conservative traders would have waited for the first overhead resistance number, the give or take number, to 672.25 to 55. But as you can see, that morning pivot was important. Opened at the pivot, came right back down. As you can see right here, the high is at 671.59, came up 1 penny short of the pivot, ate some time off the clock before running down to our first support number at 670.80. As you can see right here, nailed it pretty much right on the dot. The low is exactly 670.80. Spiked it by a few pennies the next candle, but then ripped it right back up for the bare minimum base hit. Base hits put you in the Hall of Fame. A base hit is 50 to 70 SPY cents. Or 5 to 7 ES handles. We're looking for a scalp with potential. Okay, we book the base hit, we hold the trailers for the never know, and we don't let the trade go bad on us. That's why we book a base hit, put our stops at break even, so that it's a risk-free, emotionless trade, and we hold trailers for the never know. What if, hypothetically, instead of going back down, which did stop us out, but we took a profit in our pocket, so we're okay with that, but just hypothetically speaking, what if from this support number booked the base hit and then it went right back to the morning pivot, which it did later on in the day, but if it did during this time of when we took the trade, that would have been a nice double. So we did come back down, came up short of our next support number down below, and then eventually made our way back up towards the pivot, spiked it by a little bit, came back down, went back up towards the pivot. Again, you can see how important that pivot number is. and then we finally made it to the overhead resistance give or take number. And they both seemed pretty important. Spiked through the first number at 672.25, played some ping pong back and forth, and then eventually went right back down. Where to? None other than the morning pivot. Pretty much nailing it right on the dot. Spiked it by a tad, but that's okay. You can see the importance of the pivot. It pays to know your pivot numbers. Okay, played some more ping pong back and forth, another retest of the pivot. Went back to the overhead resistance number up above, got above it. What was the high? Right here. The high is at 672.99. Came up just 1 penny short of a nice round number of 673, then came right back down, halted a little bit at the pivot number, but then where did she go down to? None other than support number 1 at 670.80. Found support off of it, and then that was pretty much all she wrote. Played some back and forth pretty much the rest of the day, and then came right back down to the flat line. So you could pause the video, read the notes, and go back to the chart to double check the work. At 9:42, we got below the pivot and now heading to 670.80. Showtime. And then 2 minutes later, we got the base hit. Base hits put you in the Hall of Fame. Where have you heard that one before? If you're a trader looking for a game plan before the opening bell, you're looking for numbers and pivots that work, and you want successful trades, then you need to come and check out Inside the Numbers. We have everything that you need to be a successful trader. We got the game plan, we got the numbers, and also we got stocks on the move. And today we went 3 for 3. How you doing? We had Pan American Silver, we had the Micro Silver Futures, and we had AU. Let's go take a look and I'll show you how well the numbers work. We got PAAS. We got support number 1 and 2 on the board. Take a look at this. The low of the first 5-minute candle is 35.51. Came up 1 penny short. Swines. But then ripped it right back up. Gave you about 80 cents or so. Some traders front ran the number. Some traders got left in the altar. That's okay, we had other opportunities on the board. Not to mention, take a look at support number 2 at 34.75. Okay, the low right here, 34.72. How you doing? That was a better trade than entry number 1. Nice trade in PAAS. How about SIL? We got entry number 1 on the board at 68.10. First 5-minute candle made a low of 68.07, nailing it right on the dot, and then gave you a little bit more than $1. Actually, this is entry number 2. Entry number 1, we opened below that number. You could go back to the stocks on the move table, double check the work. So this is actually entry number 2, but regardless of that, we had a nice little trade in SIL. How do you like them apples? AU, entry number 1 and 2 on the board, blew by entry number 1, found support at entry number 2. So if you averaged in, you came out with a nice little base hit. How you doing in AU? That's another perk of Inside the Numbers / live room. We were going over all these trades in real time in the live room. If you want live guidance during the morning trading hours, then you gotta come and check out the live room. If you purchase that, you get Inside the Numbers for free. Not to mention, we have a list of 13 different markets with support and resistance numbers. We got the Qs, IWM, SMH, bonds, Tesla, gold, crude, Bitcoin, oil. We got an opportunity around the corner for everybody. Alright, let's go take a quick trip around the world and take a look at some of the other markets, starting with Camp IWM, my number 1 favorite market leading indicator. So in last night's video, we talked about how we closed above the 247.18 number. These two numbers are important. We've been constantly having a battle back and forth between these two numbers. As you can see, today's close is at 246.99, so closing pretty much right on that number, but slightly below. And we said last night that the more time we spend above this zone and closing candles above these numbers, then she's going to want to make a test or an attempt of the all-time high, or at least this big-time breakdown candle high. The exact high is at 251.26. Probably going to be some overhead resistance at around 250. We could call that a zone of overhead resistance and a place where the market shouldn't just waltz right through. But above all the moving averages, the trend is indeed your friend, and we're in a pretty bullish situation right now, in my number 1 favorite market leading indicator. What about the transportation department? We're up 0.78%, getting some follow through, finally getting above these breakdown candle highs and closing candles above them. We don't really need these lines anymore, we can get rid of that, but we'll go ahead and keep that pivot number because we've seen time and time again that that number is important. Okay, we always find ourselves right back at the pivot. So we're not entirely throwing that out of the window, but we've reestablished price above all the moving averages. We're closing candles above that pivot number. We broke out of the triangle pattern towards the upside, getting above these breakdown candles. So we're in a pretty bullish situation for the transportation department, my second favorite market leading indicator. Next area up above that could be some initial overhead resistance is going to be right at this breakdown candle high at around 16,069. What about the Q people? Pretty much flat. She's down 0.03%, down 16 cents. And it's pretty much the same situation as the spiders. Still haven't reached the previous all-time high, which is at 613.18, eating some time off the clock up and around that area. I do think that she could poke her head above. By how much? Again, I have an idea. I have some numbers up above that I worked out over the weekend. Also, just throwing it out there, we got a big fat semi-round number at around 615. Couldn't get it quite on the dot, but 615 is a big fat semi-round number. So that could be a destination for the Q people, but she's just hanging around right now. But we have all the signs that we're in a bullish situation. Above all the moving averages, breaking out of this triangle pattern, and even closing candles above. So again, I think we could poke our heads above the all-time high. But I'm not throwing this entirely out of the window yet. Doesn't have to be tomorrow, the next day, this week, but we can possibly come back to this trend line, even getting towards the vicinity of the 20-period moving average. You do have the entrance to no man's land. It's not a huge entrance. And then also down below, we could get rid of these lines real quick. Down below, you got this gap right here at 603.93. And then you got the 20 period right below it. So it's definitely a place where the market's going to want to come back and pay a visit to. Again, doesn't have to be tomorrow or the next day or even this week, but this is an important spot. What about XLF? We're down 6 cents, 0.11%. I put two numbers on the board last night at 53.12 and 53.24. The high right here is at 53.13. That came from this big time breakdown candle high. Wasn't able to go ahead and fill this gap right here. Also coming up short of the 20 period moving average. So she spiked it by 1 penny, but we pretty much nailed it right on the dot. Still remains above the 100 period moving average and closing candles above. So now the question is, which unfinished business is she going to reach first? You got unfinished business at 53.24. That's this gap right here, coinciding with the 20 and 50 period moving average. Or on the flip side, we have this gap down here at 52.18. Some other unfinished business down below. Which one is she going to reach first? Last but not least, we got SMH shaking my head, the semiconductors, smash mouth. She's down 0.55%, a little less than $2. And just taking it at face value, she's not really doing much. You have this big time breakdown candle high. We spiked it by a little, poked our heads above, and then we came back down, missed the unfinished business down below. That unfinished business comes in at 342.83. As you can see, it came up a tad bit short, so now that is considered unfinished business. We'll see if she wants to take care of that later on this week. Or is she going to follow suit of the S&P and even my other two favorite market leading indicators and poke her head once again, making new all-time highs? As we are above all the moving averages, the trend is your friend and we're in a pretty bullish situation. Have I told you guys how much I appreciate each and every single one of you? Without you guys, these videos or MSF would not be possible. That is true and accurate information. Put it on a sticky note. We're going to pull the ripcord for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in for another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis. I'm 𝐼𝐴. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe as it helps me and the channel out a lot. That would be greatly appreciated. I hope each of you has a great rest of your day. Stay safe and take care now, folks.